boss called a cleaning lady into a $80 million bankruptcy meeting. The board laughed until she spoke. Seconds later, silence filled the room. No one could believe what she just did. The city of Seattle stretched beneath the gray sky as Ryan Dawson sat in his stepfather's massive office, his fingers gripping the armrests of the leather chair. Across from him, Walter Dawson, a self-made millionaire in his early 60s, leaned back, studying him with the same skeptical look he had always worn. "You think you're ready to handle real business, Ryan?" Walter's voice carried the usual mix of doubt and amusement. Ryan forced himself to hold his gaze. "I know I am." Walter let out a short chuckle. "Then prove it. I'm giving you control of Dawson Enterprises' failing branch. It's drowning in $80 million in losses. You have 3 months to turn it around. Succeed, and maybe I'll start taking you seriously. Fail, and you'll prove what I already suspect. You're not cut out for this world." Ryan's heart pounded. This wasn't an opportunity. It was a trap. He had never run an entire company before, let alone saved one from collapse. But walking away would mean proving Walter right. "I'll do it," he said, keeping his voice steady. Walter smirked. "Then let's see what you can do." The next day, Ryan arrived at Dawson Enterprises' Seattle office. From the moment he stepped inside, he felt the weight of failure hanging in the air. Employees moved sluggishly, their faces filled with doubt. The once thriving company was now a sinking ship. Inside his office, stacks of financial reports and debt records covered the desk. Every report he read made things seem worse than he expected. Unpaid debts, dropping revenue, constant resignations. It was overwhelming. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling inside him. He wasn't his stepfather. Walter thrived in chaos. But Ryan? He wasn't sure if he could fix this mess. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. He looked up to see Lena Brooks, the office cleaner, standing hesitantly at the doorway. She was in her late 20s, dressed in a plain uniform, her dark brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. "Sir, I was just cleaning the hallway," she said carefully. "Do you need me to take out the trash?" Ryan sighed and nodded. "Yeah, sure." As Lena walked in, her eyes flickered over the cluttered desk, noticing the financial reports spread across it. She hesitated before speaking. "You look stressed," she observed. Ryan let out a tired chuckle. "That obvious, huh?" She smiled slightly. "Hard not to notice. Everyone in the office is placing bets on how fast you'll give up." Ryan shook his head. "Great. That's motivating." Lena's gaze drifted back to the reports. "I used to study finance before I had to drop out." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Finance?" She nodded. "I had to quit when my mom got sick. Bills piled up and I had to start working. But I still understand numbers. And if I may..." She hesitated, then continued, "This company isn't just losing money. It's spending too much in the wrong places while ignoring smaller revenue streams." Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" Lena took a deep breath. "You're paying for expensive contracts that aren't necessary while letting go of employees who could actually help fix the company. If it were me, I'd start by cutting unnecessary costs and restructuring employee roles. People here feel like they're walking on a sinking ship. If you give them even a little hope, they'll work harder for you." Ryan stared at her, surprised. She wasn't just talking. She was making sense. Could the solution be that simple? "That's actually really smart," he admitted. Lena shrugged. "I read reports when I'm cleaning desks. Can't help but notice things." Ryan had nothing to lose. He took her advice, starting small. He reviewed expenses, cut down unnecessary spending, and restructured the workload. Slowly, changes began taking effect. Employees noticed the shift, and for the first time, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. A week later, his phone rang. It was Walter. "I have an opportunity for you," Walter said. "A businessman in Los Angeles, Daniel Hughes, is willing to invest. But there's a catch. He only works with married businessmen." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Married? Figure it out," Walter said. "If you fail, don't bother coming back for help." The call ended, leaving Ryan in panic mode. How was he supposed to find a wife overnight? Then his mind went back to Lena. She was smart, quick-thinking, and already helping him save the company. If anyone could pull off this act, it was her. That evening, after the office had cleared out, Ryan found Lena cleaning his office. "Hey," he said, feeling awkward. Lena looked up. "Need something?" Ryan took a deep breath. "I need a favor." She raised an eyebrow. "What kind of favor?" He exhaled sharply, mentally preparing himself. "I have an important business deal in Los Angeles next week. The investor only trusts married businessmen. I need someone to pretend to be my wife for a few days. And I think you'd be perfect for it." Lena's eyes widened in shock. "Excuse me? It's just for the meeting," Ryan rushed to explain. "You won't have to do much. Just be there. Help me convince them I'm capable. You're smart. You handled my office mess better than I did, and I trust you." Lena folded her arms. "So let me get this straight. You want me to fake being your wife in front of some billionaire?" Ryan nodded hesitantly. Silence filled the room. Lena thought about it, her expression unreadable. Then finally she sighed. "You owe me a lot for this." Ryan grinned. "Deal." As Lena walked away, Ryan felt something unexpected. For the first time in years, he had hope. But neither of them realized that this fake marriage was about to change their lives forever. Ryan adjusted his tie in the hotel mirror, barely recognizing himself. He had spent the past few nights tossing and turning, thinking about how insane this plan was. A fake wife? A billionaire investor? If Daniel Hughes saw through this, he'd lose everything. He turned to see Lena standing near the window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. She looked different tonight. Not the office cleaner he had met, but someone confident, poised, and ready. She wore a simple black dress, her hair styled elegantly. "You sure about this?" Ryan asked. Lena smirked. "I agreed, didn't I?" She turned to him with a teasing look. "Besides, I'm curious to see if you can actually sell yourself as a trustworthy businessman. Let's hope I don't have to do all the work." Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "Just follow my lead, and we'll be fine." They entered the private dining hall of an upscale restaurant where Daniel Hughes and his wife, Caroline, were already waiting. The moment Daniel's sharp eyes landed on Ryan, he scanned him like a businessman assessing an investment. Caroline, however, smiled warmly. "You must be Ryan's wife," she said, reaching out to shake Lena's hand. "It's wonderful to meet you." Lena didn't hesitate. She smiled confidently and shook her hand. "Likewise, Ryan has spoken highly of you both." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Has he now?" Ryan forced a polite laugh. "I might have mentioned how much I admire your business strategies." Dinner started with small talk, but Lena was the one who surprised everyone. She effortlessly engaged with Caroline, steering the conversation toward business. When Daniel threw direct questions at Ryan about the company's financial struggles, Lena jumped in with confidence. "Yes, there were setbacks," she admitted, taking a sip of her drink. "But setbacks push people to think outside the box. Ryan has been restructuring the company, cutting unnecessary expenses, and most importantly, earning the trust of his employees. You'd be surprised how much a company can change when the workers believe in their leader." Ryan stared at her, momentarily stunned. Was she defending him? Daniel nodded slightly, intrigued. "Interesting perspective." He looked at Ryan. "And what exactly is your plan for ensuring long-term stability?" Ryan regained his composure and laid out his strategy. He explained the cost-cutting measures, restructuring plans, and employee engagement tactics. But what truly sealed the deal was how Lena subtly guided the conversation in his favor. By the time dessert arrived, Daniel leaned back in his chair, nodding thoughtfully. "I like the way you think, Ryan. You have ambition and, more importantly, you have someone who believes in you. A good marriage is like a good business partnership. It thrives on trust and smart decision-making." Caroline smiled at Lena. "You two make a wonderful team." Lena held Ryan's hand, playing the part perfectly. Surprisingly, Ryan didn't mind it. Daniel took a deep breath. "All right, I'll invest. But only under one condition: don't waste my money. I want results. Relief washed over Ryan. He had done it. The deal was secured. Under the table, he squeezed Lena's hand, silently thanking her. Back at the hotel, Ryan collapsed onto the couch, exhaling sharply. I can't believe that worked. Lena flopped onto the chair across from him, kicking off her heels. Told you I wouldn't let you fail. He looked at her, his gratitude deeper than words. You were incredible tonight, Lena. I mean it. I don't think I could have pulled that off without you. She smirked. Probably not. They both laughed, the tension from earlier finally melting away. Ryan's phone buzzed. It was Walter. You did it. Walter's voice came through the speaker. Ryan grinned. Yes, Daniel Hughes is investing. There was a brief silence before Walter spoke again. Impressive. He paused. Let's see if you can maintain the success when you get back. The call ended, and Ryan felt a strange mix of victory and frustration. Even now, his stepfather refused to fully acknowledge his achievement. Lena noticed the change in his expression. Still doesn't believe in you, huh? Ryan sighed. No matter what I do, it's never enough. She watched him for a moment before saying softly, then stop trying to prove yourself to him. Do it for you, Ryan. Ryan looked at her, taken aback. No one had ever said that to him before. The flight back to Seattle was smooth, but something had changed between them. Ryan found himself glancing at Lena more than before. The way she carried herself, her confidence, the way she had defended him in front of Daniel, it was impossible to ignore. When they returned to the office, things felt different. Ryan was no longer just trying to survive, he was leading. Employees who had once doubted him now worked harder, sensing the shift in leadership. Walter, however, remained watchful. He saw Ryan's progress but still refused to fully acknowledge it. A few days later, Ryan and Lena sat in his office, reviewing the latest financial reports. The numbers were improving, the company was slowly pulling out of crisis. You know, Ryan said, turning to her, you should be doing more than just cleaning offices. Lena laughed. Oh, and what would I do? You have a brilliant mind for finance, Ryan said seriously. You should finish your studies. Lena's smile faded slightly. I can't. My mom still needs care, and money is tight. Ryan hesitated before saying, let me help. Lena frowned. Ryan, I can't let you do that. You already helped me, he interrupted. This company wouldn't be turning around if it weren't for you. The least I can do is make sure you get to do what you love. She stared at him, emotion flickering in her eyes. No one had ever offered to help her like this before. Before she could respond, the office door burst open. Walter stormed in, his expression unreadable. What is this nonsense I'm hearing? Walter demanded. You're giving this girl a position beyond her rank? Paying for her studies. Ryan stood up. She's earned it. Walter's eyes narrowed. Is that what this is really about? Or is it because you have feelings for her? Ryan didn't back down. What if I do? Lena's heart skipped a beat. Walter scoffed. You're making a fool of yourself, Ryan. She's a cleaner, not someone who belongs in our world. Ryan's fists clenched. She belongs wherever she wants to be. And if you don't see that, then maybe I don't belong in your world either. The room fell into tense silence. Lena felt her heart race. She had agreed to help Ryan with one business deal, but now things had become something much bigger, and she wasn't sure where it was going to lead. The tension in the office lingered long after Walter stormed out. Lena sat frozen in her chair, her mind racing. She had expected pushback from Walter, but she hadn't expected Ryan to stand up to him like that, especially not in front of her. Ryan's words played over in her head. What if I do? He had said it so confidently, so fearlessly. But did he really mean it? Ryan, on the other hand, felt something shift inside him. For years, he had sought his stepfather's approval, bending over backward to prove himself. But now, for the first time, he didn't care what Walter thought. All he cared about was doing what felt right, and standing up for Lena had felt more right than anything else in his life. But before either of them could process what had just happened, Ryan's phone rang. He picked it up, his expression darkening instantly. What? When? His voice was sharp with urgency. Lena sat up straight. Ryan, what's wrong? Ryan hung up and turned to her, his jaw clenched. It's your mom, Lena. She collapsed. Lena felt the floor disappear beneath her. She shot to her feet, her hands trembling. We need to go. Now. Ryan didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys, and they rushed out together, weaving through the Seattle streets as fast as possible. Lena sat in the passenger seat, clutching her hands together, her breathing uneven. She was fine this morning, Ryan. She was doing better. Ryan reached over and took her hand, squeezing it. She's strong, Lena. Just hold on. When they arrived at the hospital, Lena rushed to the front desk. Margaret Brooks, she was brought in earlier. Where is she? The nurse checked the records before looking up. She's in intensive care. The doctors are with her now. Lena felt the world spin. Ryan quickly placed a steady hand on her back. Can we see her? He asked. Not yet, the nurse said gently. But I'll let you know as soon as you can. Lena sank into the waiting area chair, her fingers gripping the armrests. I can't lose her, Ryan. She's all I have. Ryan knelt in front of her, his eyes filled with determination. You won't. I promise. Hours passed before a doctor finally approached. Lena jumped to her feet, her heart pounding. She's stable, the doctor said, but his expression remained serious. She needs surgery. The problem is, it's expensive and I'll cover it. Ryan interrupted before the doctor could finish. Lena turned to him, eyes wide. Ryan, no. This isn't up for discussion, he said firmly. Tell them to schedule it immediately. Tears welled in Lena's eyes, but she didn't argue. Instead, she took his hand, holding on to it as if it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Thank you, she whispered. Ryan stayed with her through the night, refusing to leave. Even when she told him to go home, he shook his head. Not happening. I'm staying right here. Lena had never had someone choose her before. Not like this. When the surgery finally ended, the doctor returned with good news. She's going to be okay. Lena let out a sob of relief, covering her mouth with her hands. Ryan pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried. Later that evening, Lena sat beside her mother's hospital bed, holding her frail hand. Margaret slowly opened her eyes, a small smile forming. You scared me, Mom, Lena whispered. Margaret's gaze drifted past her daughter, landing on Ryan, who stood in the doorway. She smiled knowingly. That young man loves you. Lena turned, glancing at Ryan. I know. Ryan met her gaze and walked over, taking her hand. Your mom is strong, just like you. Margaret looked between them, warmth in her eyes. And I can see why you love him too. Lena's heart skipped a beat. She turned back to her mother. Mom, you don't have to say it, Margaret whispered. I already know. Lena looked at Ryan, and for once, she didn't fight it. She didn't run from it. I do, she admitted softly. I love him. Ryan smiled, lifting her hand to his lips. I love you too, Lena. I've known it for a while now. Lena felt her world finally settle into place. Everything they had been through, everything they had fought for, it had led to this. But their fight wasn't over yet. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of the monitors. Lena sat beside her mother, still holding her hand, letting Ryan's words settle in her heart. He loved her. She had said it back. For the first time, there was no hesitation, no doubt. But as much as she wanted to hold onto that moment, reality had other plans. The door creaked open, and Walter Dawson stepped inside. Ryan's entire body tensed. Lena looked up, surprised, but her guard immediately went up. Walter had never acknowledged her before. Why was he here now? I heard what you did, Walter said, looking at Ryan. His tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't warm either. You paid for her mother's surgery? Ryan straightened, his jaw tightening. Yes. Walter sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I suppose I should have expected that. His gaze shifted to Lena. And I also heard what you did for my son. You helped him save the company. Lena didn't respond right away. She had spent so much time proving herself, fighting to be seen, but she never needed Walter's approval. Still, there was something different in his voice tonight. Walter exhaled sharply. I was wrong about you. The room fell into silence. Ryan's head snapped up, shocked at the admission. Lena, too, wasn't sure if she had heard correctly. You're not just some office cleaner, Walter continued. You're smart, strong, and you stood by Ryan when no one else did. He met his son's gaze. And I see now that she's important to you. Ryan studied his stepfather, waiting for the usual judgment, the usual dismissal. But it never came. Does this mean you approve? Ryan asked, crossing his arms. Walter's jaw tightened. I won't stop you, but don't expect me to throw a party either. Ryan let out a breath and nodded. That's enough for me. Walter gave Lena a final glance. Take care of him, he said before turning and walking out. The moment the door closed, Lena let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Did he just? Yeah, Ryan muttered, still in disbelief. A small smile tugged at Lena's lips. Well, that's something. 2 months later, Ryan and Lena stood at the altar, surrounded by family, friends, and employees. The Seattle sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the ceremony. Lena wore a simple yet elegant white dress, her hair curled at the ends, a soft smile on her lips. Ryan, standing at the front, had never looked happier. When Lena walked down the aisle, their eyes locked, and in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the doubts, not the battles, not Walter's skepticism. Just them. You look beautiful, Ryan whispered as she reached him. Lena smirked. You clean up pretty well yourself. The officiant spoke, the vows were exchanged, and when the words husband and wife were finally said, Ryan pulled Lena into his arms and kissed her as the crowd cheered around them. From the side, Walter stood with his arms crossed. He wasn't smiling, but for the first time he wasn't frowning either. As the reception carried on, Lena found herself standing with Ryan under the soft glow of the fairy lights, her hands in his. Did you ever think this would happen? She asked. Ryan chuckled. Not in a million years. Lena squeezed his hands. We proved everyone wrong. Ryan leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. We did more than that, Lena. We built something real. And as they stood together, surrounded by laughter, love, and the life they had built, they both knew this was only the beginning.